Welcome back, my Duelist friends. Casual Duelist here. Happy Monday. And like I promised, we're going to be doing a Magic the Gathering deck. It's going to be a green-black Infect deck. So for those of you who are unaware with Infect, what happens is we use poison counters through effects. Poison counters as dealt damage to creatures equal -1 counters. To players, they have this effect. A player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game. Now, this feels pretty recent to me because, again, what was it? It was Mirrored and Besieged, New Phyrexia, that block. Brought back Infect, but Infect is not a new effect to the game by any means. There used to be cards that did poison damage. It is what it is. Mana count is going to be a quick 9 and 9. So get yourself 9 forests, get yourself 9 swamps. You're going to be running 18 land altogether. And again, it's going to be pretty even amongst. I do have a new pack of sleeves for these off screen, so I know I'm doing the bad thing by handling unsleeved cards, but I know you guys are going to forgive me, so it is what it is. First creature spell up is going to be the Blight Mamba. And again, I just love the art on these things because they look so gruesome. It is going to be a 1/1 Infect that plays on 2. And for its casting cost replayed, you can regenerate the Blight Mamba. Now, Magic players, you guys understand regeneration. Yu-Gi-Oh players, let's give you a little example. So we just attack and we pick our targets. Now in Magic, you just tap to signify that your monster is attacked, and your opponent actually sends in cards to block. Now, regeneration regenerates its toughness. This will be the second number. Basically, it's like the monster's health. So this one being a little 1/1, it's going to get stomped pretty quickly. But again, we are going to do our 1 damage in the form of a negative counter to another card. So again, if it was a 2/2, now it's going to be considered a 1/1. It's fine. How the regeneration works is we would then tap, 2 land to show that we've used it, to pay the cost. And then since it had attacked, it's just going to come back in a tapped position. And it means it will not be able to block. Now, I do believe that if I used the Blight Mamba to block and just send it out to intercept, it doesn't have to tap to do this. But when it regenerates, I do think it does tap itself to show that it's basically worn out. Yeah, hopefully that was a good enough explanation. But it's a really cool card. Next up, we're going to use the 4 copies of the Glistener Elf. And this is really cool because this is a 1/1 with Infect. And it was just a seriously cool looking elf. Again, maybe we'll switch to a not so shiny one so you guys can see it. Just looks awesome. Next up, we need some of the black cards to go with the green. The first one we're going to play is a playset of the Icarats. And now these guys are cool. They are 2/1 on a casting of 3. They will, of course, retain the infectability. Now, when these enter the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. So this doesn't even have to make its way over to the opponent to get them that counter. But it will give you a counter as well as the player using it. So do use it sparingly if you find yourself in a mirror match. But sometimes it's what you need. Next up, and I just dropped one, so give me half a second. All right. We also have the playset of the Ichor Claw Mirror, or Mire, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I want to say officially it's Mirror. It's going to cast on a generic 2. It is a 1/1. It does have Infect. Whenever it becomes blocked, it gets an additional +2/+2. So this is something that, unless they're looking forward to losing a lot of their creatures and their potential blockers, they're pretty much always going to let this little guy through. But remember, once you get to the 10 points of damage, you're where you want to be. Next card we play a playset of the Phyrexian Crusaders. These guys will come in on 3 cast to be a 2/2 with first strike and protection from red and white with the Infect. So again, Magic players, you guys understand all these effects. Yu-Gi-Oh players, First strike means he gets to smack the opponent before he gets smacked. And if the other character happens to be anything with a toughness of 2 or less, well, he's going to take him out way before he can get hurt. And again, if the power is 2 or less and he does his damage first, then the other creature cannot retaliate against him because it'll already have 2 poison counters on it, giving itself a -2, -2. And he'll also be immune to his damage that way. And then when we talk about protection from red and white, the red and white spells, or any spell that has any combination of color identities that include white or red, it just is totally immune to any and all effects and any and all damage and any and all combat. It's just immune to those 2 colors. So again, these guys are pretty cool. And again, I love that armor. It's giving me Death Knight vibes. While being like semi-mechanical and ultra-skeletal. So it's everything the Phyrexians were. Next card, we're going to be playing 4 copies of the Plague Stinger. Plague Stinger, again, looking like a nasty mosquito. This says a 1/1 on 2. It is flying, so it is much harder to block. You need reach or flying to do so. And again, it's Infect. So every time it does do the damage, it's going to be doing it in the form of those counters. We only need to hit the opponent worth 10. Next up, we are going to use 3 copies of the Rotwolf. And the Rotwolf, again, just looking like an absolute cool zombie Phyrexian hybrid, is a 2/2 on 3 with Infect. And whenever a creature dealt damage by the Rotwolf this turn is put into a graveyard, you also get to draw a card. So again, this makes this card just a little tougher and helps you replace cards that you're using. Last creature spell we're going to use the legendary creature Skithrix the Blight Dragon, or as we used to call him, Skittles. And you will notice, Yu-Gi-Oh players, this one is legendary. So then this means only one of these can exist on the field at a time, and it doesn't matter who controls it. If another copy is attempted to be played, all copies get sent to the discard pile. I think. It's either that or the newest one replaces the oldest one. I'm not sure which way. I know one was a previous effect and then got changed later. Does have flying. It is a 4/4 flyer on 5. Still with the Infect. Can regenerate on 2 black mana. And for 1, it will gain haste until the end of the turn. So if you do have 6 mana when you play this, haste means he can start moving immediately, fly over the opponent's defenses, and go ahead and put 4 points of hurt on your opponent. Going into the regular spells, and again, this is why I love New Phyrexia and stuff like that. One of my favorite cards was the Mutagenic Growth. So we can cast that symbol as either being 1 green or shock casting, which is we can pay with 2 life. So even if all of our mana is tapped, we're still not out of options. And what this will do is target creature gets a +2/+2 until the end of the turn. So wait till you know that the monster's unblocked. Give it some Mutagenic Growth, put some more counters on the opponent. Next up, nice little enchantment. These ones appear to be M13s. Yep, all 3. This is Rancor. So the way that this one works is we'll cast this spell for 1. We'll enchant and equip it to a creature spell that we control, or one that we don't. The enchanted creature will get a +2/0 and trample. Again, for those that maybe don't remember trample, it's very similar to our piercing damage in Yu-Gi-Oh! When Rancor is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you return it to its owner's hand. Again, this is much better than some of our equipment in Yu-Gi-Oh! That returns. Sometimes it comes at a cost, and most of the time it puts itself on the top of the deck. So Rancor, very cool and very cheap to just keep putting these on cards. Next, we're going to run a little bit of artifacts, and not artifact creatures, just artifacts that we would control as the player. And the most devious one of these is probably the Contagion Clasp. So the way that this one works is for 2 mana, we generate this. When this enters the battlefield, you place a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Sort of like a poison counter, but not really. Now, for 4 mana and tap to show that we've used the Contagion Clasp's effect that turn, we get to proliferate. And the best part is it's got the reminder text because this was a new effect during this set. And what it is you may choose any number of permanents and or players with any type of counter on them. Then give each one that you chose to another counter of any kind it already had. So, remember the Ichor Rats, and I said both players get an Infect counter? Well, we can increase the amount of infection counters the opponent has by tapping one of these with 4 mana. And the Ichor Rat is a wonderful way of sort of putting that damage there in the first place, and then just doing this while the other monsters are holding your line for you. Because maybe you have made it, they've made it a little too difficult for you to get through. So the Contagion Clasps are kind of like, they're jerk mode. Additionally, the way that you could use these is, let's say that you were playing a deck that actually had +1 counters in it. You could choose to increase your +1 counters while choosing to increase your opponent's infection counters. So this way your monsters will get stronger while theirs get weaker, making an even bigger gap. And again, you could just choose not to do certain cards. So again, maybe the opponent has a Planeswalker. Well, loyalty or devotion counters are a thing. I don't want to modify that value in the positive, so we just won't select that effect. So again, it looks wicked, it looks awesome, and it does a great job for this deck. And then last up, and this is one of the things that we do increase, I'm using some tumble magnets. Now, these were very fun. These were from the Return to Mirrodin or Mirrodin Besieged. I'm not sure what the symbol here is. And Tumble Magnet enters the battlefield with 3 charges on it. So again, go get your handy-dandy pack of dice, play your card, give it 3. What it says is tap and remove a charge. So you do that. You do this. And you get to tap target artifact or creature. So I can tap out your character before you go into the battle phase because I don't want you to attack me with it. If he's tapped, he's exhausted. Same thing with certain artifacts. Maybe my opponent has their own Contagion Clasps, and as long as I tap it before they pay the cost and tap it themselves, then it's no effect. So the Tumble Magnets are just really good control aspect pieces that came out during that time period. And that, my friends, is a 60-card green-black infection deck. Basically, for the most part, this is block built for the second Mirrodin block. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully I get to see you guys next time. Later.